I could see no way out. Every morning I got up and the first thing that came into my head was, how am I going to get a drink today? How's I going to hit my target today?
I couldn't see people above me that I wanted to emulate, and even though they were very wealthy, their life looked pretty hellish and it wasn't a life that I wanted.
We're sitting on a time bomb. They are the best paid victims of a system that makes all of us victims.
The infamous city bankers, pinstriped and scurrying about their business, lured by a bonus culture that some say leads to a path of recklessness and greed, of highs and lows, crash and burn, or worse.
7 years on from the worst financial crisis in living memory, and you'd hope the city would have learned from the lessons of the past. There's much talk about changing the culture here, but at the same time, many would say the old ways are creeping back in. High pressure, targets, and crucially bonuses, and that's cranking up the pressure and the stress.
I started off falling asleep in toilets, bars and nightclubs. I'd be drink driving after seeing clients, and the client would go home and I'd go looking for a party somewhere else.
This banker, whose identity we've agreed to protect, has worked in the city for 20 years, entertaining clients for major banks.
You were always aware you had a target to hit. You were always aware that your performance was linked to your target, but if you were constantly out entertaining, you'd find it, eventually it became difficult to hit the bloody target because I wasn't in a state to hit the target.
What would have happened if you hadn't?
You didn't get a bonus. And people would know you'd got a big fat zero because you weren't out celebrating a bonus. If you hadn't performed, you're also at risk of being sort of sliced out at the bottom of the firm, the firm kicking you out.
Every 6 months, people are fired. I've heard so many horror stories of people saying, I come back from lunch and find my colleague gone.
Joris Luyendijk spent 3 years conducting anonymous interviews with hundreds of bankers in the city. He wanted to find out what drove them to behave the way they did, and whether, post the crash, their behaviour had changed. What he found was a culture of silence, of fear.
I came to this thinking, wow, they're all monsters, they lead this fantastic life, wow, I hate them. And then I meet them, and well, look around you, they're really normal people, deeply vulnerable. They can be fired in 5 minutes. So they're treated really badly by their bank. Now, why would they treat their bank any better? And then, if all goes well, everybody gets a big bonus. If it goes wrong, someone else pays the bill. And so the incentives are wrong. And so we keep focusing on culture, but we should look at the incentives.
John struggled on with his problem for years, until one night he woke up slumped at his desk yet again, after telling himself he'd have one quick drink after work. It was 5 a.m. and he felt terrified and out of control.
I left the office and I walked down to the Thames with every intention of trying to end my life. My wife called because she'd been panicking all night to figure out where the hell I'd been. I said, look, I just need to talk to you, because if I don't talk to you, I'm going to jump in the bloody river just to get away from all this, because I can't control what I'm doing.
He maintains, had his wife not called him at that precise moment, he would have ended up another headline, another banker pushed to a tragic end, taking their own life.
My name is Jordan Belfort. The year I turned 26, I made $49 million, which really pissed me off because it was 3 shy of $1 million a week.
In the years since the crash, public sympathy for bankers has been thin on the ground. The Wolf of Wall Street was a box office hit, an insight into the secretive world of high finance and the morally corrupt banker. An image today's bankers are all too aware of.
The last few years, like the bankers and the traders being demonised by the public. Most people would hide the fact that they worked in the city. It's nothing to brag about.
Richard Kingdon opened an addiction clinic for city workers 5 years ago. Now he says he's busier than ever.
There's a lot of people up here with a problem with alcohol because of the environment and what's expected of people going out entertaining clients. Cocaine's always been pretty prevalent up here, although no one really likes to talk about it. People don't really look after themselves here. They earn the big bucks. At what price though?
In a recent survey of 250 workers in this square mile, 42% said they'd taken time off work due to stress-related illnesses, and nearly 83% reported that their job has caused them stress some or all of the time, while nearly a quarter said they see a personal need for psychological help. Growing demand for therapy led the famous Priory clinic to open a new centre in the city last year.
It sounds like a first world crisis, doesn't it, the stressed banker? But I think we have to remember that bankers essentially kind of fuel the British economy, and also the banks, many of us have pensions invested in banks. If bankers don't have good mental health, they won't make good judgments, and if they don't make good judgments, then many of the investments won't do as well. So I think it actually is in all of our interests for the city to function well.
We contacted all the major banks in the city, but none would agree to give us an interview. Some, though, did provide details about the types of measures they're taking to try and combat stress, like providing in-house counselling services or recommending that their bankers work fewer hours. But the worry, though, is that their reluctance to talk about the past could spell danger for the future.
Really focused on just results. Winning does become everything.
James Matana worked in the city for over a decade, advising private equity firms, the ultimate masters of the universe. Initially, he was drawn to the money in the fast-paced life, but over time his priorities changed. Eventually he left and set up his own yoga studio.
The positive transformation yoga had on me and my kind of health and my well-being was great, and that there was a universe of people around me that were just working themselves, endlessly, always working for the next kind of promotion, the kind of next bonus. Typically, they've kind of reached the point of burnout, or they've kind of gone through burnout, and they're trying to create a kind of more healthy and sustainable lifestyle.
Back at work after 2 stints in rehab, John is as close to happy as he's been for a long time. And finally, he feels supported at work, though he says the addiction hasn't left him.
I could walk off into a bar and all bets are off. But since I came out, I haven't had a drink.
Do you ever see a time when the city won't be driven by the bonus culture that you describe?
I've certainly seen change in the city and the industry. It had to change. And it will do so again and be successful again, but it will hopefully do so with the right behaviours.